Hello, I'm Bella, and at 31 years old, I'm currently managing our household while staying at home. My husband, Jerry, who is 4 years older than me, and I have been living with his parents, Henry and Marilyn, for the past 3 years. Both in their 60s, Henry and Marilyn are surprisingly vigorous and healthy. Marilyn, in particular, is very sociable and enjoys a busy social life. Since moving in, I've noticed that Marilyn rarely contributes to household chores despite not having a job outside the home. Although she was once a stay-at-home mom, she now leaves most of the domestic responsibilities to me. Occasionally, she encourages me to take some time for myself, but then criticizes me if things aren't perfect when she returns. I've tried discussing my concerns with her, explaining that I might not be able to complete all the tasks before she leaves, but she often brushes me off. She insists that managing numerous chores is normal and tends to criticize my generation for not being as capable as hers. Furthermore, Marilyn frequently praises Jerry, particularly proud of his position at a prominent company, and often suggests that I don't measure up. This comparison has become her go-to comment. Jerry's reactions only make things worse. During meals, when Marilyn complains about my efforts, he responds with an indifferent, "Oh, really?" showing little support. I initially admired Jerry's maturity, but now I often feel like I'm just a housekeeper, despite working tirelessly into the night. The situation has grown increasingly challenging, and I wish Jerry would stand up for me. He seems oblivious to the extent of my contributions to our home. Instead of addressing my concerns directly, he tosses laundry at me, sometimes aiming for my face, curtly telling me to handle that too. I often regret marrying him because he has changed so much since our wedding. On our first anniversary, he surprised me with a cake but then playfully smashed a pie in my face, laughing about it. It's hard to believe he's an adult. However, there is one silver lining in my life: my father-in-law, Henry. He's incredibly calm and consistently checks in to see if I need help with anything. He's become the only source of kindness I experience in this household. Since leaving my job to marry Jerry, Henry has become someone I can confide in, and my affection for him has grown. I see him almost as a real father. Unfortunately, Henry works during the day, which means I often find myself alone with Marilyn. While I can speak freely with Henry, Marilyn's demeanor toward me can be quite sour. She has even begun accusing me of flirting with my father-in-law simply because Jerry neglects me. She hurls these accusations when Henry is out of earshot. I've tried to deny it, but she dismisses my words with a mocking tone, asking if she's touched a nerve and always ready with a biting retort. Our conversations seem to go nowhere. I brought these issues up with Jerry, hoping he would understand that Marilyn's suspicions are unfounded, but he just laughed it off, joking that I must now be interested in older men too. It's painfully clear that nothing will change. I never expected Jerry to start doing chores or to put an end to Marilyn's mockery, but I also didn't anticipate his reaction to the situation. It was a significant shock, leaving me feeling increasingly out of place in their home. One summer day, Marilyn began discussing plans for a family trip during Jerry's summer break. At first, I thought her excitement was just her usual enthusiasm for outings, but then she caught me off guard by asking if I wanted to join. I hadn't expected an invitation. I assumed they might leave without me. When I hesitated, Marilyn's expression turned suspicious as she questioned whether I really wanted to go. Her sudden invitation made me uneasy. I couldn't discern her motive and worried about how she might react if I declined. That evening, Jerry brought up the trip again, curious about my plans. I mentioned that I had been invited, and his reaction surprised me. He burst out laughing. Confused and feeling more uncomfortable, I asked him why he found it funny, but he brushed off my question, claiming it was nothing. On the day of the trip, it was just Jerry, Marilyn, and me in the car. Jerry was driving, with Marilyn beside him while I sat in the back. Henry was unable to join us initially due to work commitments, which added to my anxiety. Midway through our drive, Marilyn inquired if I had withdrawn money for the trip. When I confirmed that I had taken out a few hundred, her pleased reaction struck me as odd. As we continued driving, I noticed we had bypassed the inn where we were supposed to stay. "Did we just pass the inn?" I asked. Jerry responded vaguely, mentioning there was a tourist spot ahead, and that we would check in after visiting it. His smile didn't reach his eyes, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. The further we drove, the lusher and more isolated the scenery became. I let out a quiet sigh, careful not to let either Marilyn or Jerry hear my concern. Eventually, we arrived at a small, secluded dam with hardly anyone around. Marilyn suggested we get out and stretch our legs, while Jerry reminded us not to leave anything valuable in the car. I followed their instructions, stepping into the unfamiliar surroundings, still trying to make sense of the day's unexpected twists. As I got out of the car and shut the door, I noticed Marilyn and Jerry hesitating, pretending to fiddle with something inside the vehicle. Then, I heard the click of the locks engaging. The windows were left only slightly open, and suddenly Jerry burst out laughing. Confused, I asked, "What's going on? Are we staying here for the night?" A surge of anger towards Marilyn welled up within me, but I managed to keep my composure. "What do you mean?" I replied, striving to maintain my cool. "You walked right into that one, didn't you?" Jerry said, laughing so hard he had to clutch his stomach. Realization hit me like a wave. My wallet and cell phone were still in the car. Everything had unfolded exactly as Marilyn and Jerry had planned. "Have fun out here, Bella," Marilyn sneered mockingly. "Maybe you can eat some grass and sleep under the stars." Jerry, still holding my wallet, rifled through it before rolling up the window. Their laughter faded as they drove off, leaving me stranded. Standing alone, I felt the heat of humiliation wash over me, and I muttered to myself, "Well, this is just great." Despite the sweltering heat and the risk of dehydration, I surprisingly didn't panic. About an hour later, I found myself in the lobby of the inn where we were originally supposed to stay. "Why are you here?" Jerry exclaimed, shocked to see me as he entered the lobby. "Are you a ghost? Did something happen at the dam?" He looked utterly bewildered, while Marilyn appeared to be on the verge of fainting, eyeing me nervously. For a moment, I considered playing along and pretending to be a ghost just to tease them, but I decided against it. "I'm not a ghost," I said, holding up the key to my room. "I'm staying here tonight." I had already dropped off my luggage when Jerry, clearly agitated, struggled to make sense of the situation. He accused me of taking the key to their room without permission. "What are you doing?" "Give it back," he demanded, reaching aggressively for the key. This time, however, I was prepared for their antics and stood my ground, ready to confront whatever came next. Just then, a man stepped forward and firmly grasped Jerry's hand. "Sir, please refrain from causing a disturbance here," he said with authority. He was about the same age as Henry but taller and more muscular, which made him appear more commanding than my slightly overweight husband. "Who are you? Are you staff here? You can't just interfere with a guest like this. I'll sue you for assault." Marilyn shouted at the man who had intervened. "I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. I'm the owner of this inn," the man replied calmly. At this revelation, Jerry quickly released my hand. I recognized the owner immediately. I had visited this area with friends during a summer break in college. It had been an incredibly hot day, and we got lost on our way to our accommodation. During our ordeal, we stumbled upon a girl collapsed on the side of the road. Kelly, the owner's daughter. We immediately called for an ambulance and stayed with her till help arrived. The next day, the owner visited us at the inn where we were staying and thanked us profusely. "You saved my daughter's life. Thank you so much," he had said. He even extended an invitation for us to stay with him next time we were in the area, saying we wouldn't have to pay. Since then, my family and I had visited the inn several times, so I knew the owner quite well. As he addressed my husband and Marilyn, he remained polite, but I could sense an undercurrent of anger in his demeanor. In fact, both the owner and I were aware of Marilyn and Jerry's scheme from the beginning. 3 weeks ago, feeling suspicious about their sudden invitation for a trip, I had decided to set up a voice recorder in the living room. I had strategically placed the recorder to capture conversations when my husband and Marilyn thought they were alone, like when I was taking a bath or doing laundry. When I stumbled upon their plan, it was utterly shocking. I heard my husband and Marilyn plotting in a recorded conversation. "Let's ditch Bella somewhere. It would be hilarious. How about near that gym an hour's drive from the inn?" Realizing the gravity of their scheme, I immediately contacted the owner of the inn to inform him about what was unfolding. The owner was livid upon hearing this. Having once experienced his daughter collapsing from the heat, he felt a personal connection to my predicament and was even more disturbed by their callousness. He meticulously arranged my pickup for today, just after my husband and Marilyn's car departed. Interestingly, the driver of the inn shuttle turned out to be Kelly, the very girl we had helped years ago. "I got my license. Let's go for a drive," she exclaimed excitedly. Despite my initial surprise, I agreed, and we chatted happily, even stopping to buy some local specialty ice cream on the way back to the inn. Although I was aware of the plan and that a pickup was coming, I was still worried. However, Kelly, knowing the area exceptionally well, expertly navigated, and we arrived at the inn well before my husband and Marilyn. "You mentioned suing earlier, ma'am," the inn owner said, addressing Marilyn with a stern look. "Yes, I did. It's outrageous to be accused of the opposite," Marilyn snapped defiantly. "I'm sorry, but you're not our guest," the owner replied firmly. "What? Don't mess with us." My husband and Marilyn both lost their tempers simultaneously. "Your reservations have been canceled," the owner stated plainly. "And who do you think you are?" My husband blustered, on the verge of another outburst. But the owner held him back. "Bella did nothing wrong. We can cancel your reservations," he explained calmly. "What do you mean?" my husband demanded. "If you leave a woman alone at a dam in the mountains after stealing her wallet, wouldn't that be a crime?" the owner posed rhetorically, emphasizing the gravity of their actions. "We cannot permit such behavior at our inn." He revealed that he had already called the police. My husband and Marilyn became even more incensed at this revelation. "This is no joke. You can't treat us this way. I work for a respected company," my husband protested, as if his job should afford him special treatment at this quaint mountain inn. Just then, Henry arrived, immediately sensing the tension. "Hey, what's going on here?" he asked, surveying the scene. Marilyn and my husband quickly tried to spin the story, accusing the inn staff of rudeness and claiming they wanted to stay elsewhere. However, when Henry was briefed on the actual events, he became enraged, a sight I'd never seen before. "You idiots," he yelled, clearly embarrassed. "I can't believe we're from the same family," Henry exclaimed, his voice rising in anger. "You two, get out of here now." My husband and mother-in-law were taken aback by Henry's outburst. "Where to?" they asked, bewildered. But Henry was resolute. "You're disowned. Get out." "No, don't make me say it again," he commanded, shoving my husband aside as the police arrived. My husband and Marilyn's faces turned ashen. The owner and I quickly explained the entire situation to the officer, even playing back the recorded conversation. As the reality of their actions sunk in, my husband and Marilyn began to cry. Henry interjected sharply, "Quiet down. You're disturbing the inn." He turned to the officer. "Please take them away." "It's not like that, officer," my husband protested. "We didn't think it would be such a big deal. It was just a prank." The officer's expression hardened. "A prank? Are you serious? Don't you realize that your little joke could have put someone's life at risk, especially your own wife's?" They were scolded harshly, but due to the familial nature of the matter, they weren't arrested. Throughout the ordeal, my husband and Marilyn looked pale and shaken. "This isn't over. Bella's feelings will determine your future, understand?" With those final words, they left, visibly rattled. Henry, seeming apologetic for not intervening sooner, stayed behind to ensure everything was settled. "I'm so sorry," he said repeatedly. "I can't apologize enough for not noticing the unpleasant experiences you've been having and the terrible ordeal you went through today." He also offered a deep apology to the inn owner for the trouble caused by his family's actions. Interestingly, it turned out that the inn owner, who runs several other businesses, was a client of the company where Henry worked. Unaware of this connection, my husband had earlier boasted about his position at a prominent company, adding another layer of embarrassment to the situation. I was relieved that I had uncovered my husband and Marilyn's plan in time, but it was also a sobering reminder of what could have happened if I hadn't been vigilant. I hoped that being reprimanded by the police would help them understand the gravity of their actions. After returning from the inn, I decided to divorce my husband and sought a significant settlement, hoping this experience would teach them to never hurt anyone else again. In an unexpected twist, Henry and Marilyn also ended up divorcing. Henry cut all ties with my ex-husband, kicking him out of the house due to the incident. Additionally, my ex-husband was advised to resign from his job. His behavior at work had been problematic for some time, just as he had mistreated me. He had been harsh toward his colleagues and engineers. The HR department had already been considering action against him. As I reflected on my own behavior during our marriage, I was disappointed to realize that, in some ways, I had mirrored his negativity. Now unemployed, my ex-husband struggled to find another job. Despite his age, he lacked the solid track record necessary for managerial positions, and explaining his sudden departure became difficult. Marilyn, too, was kicked out by Henry and had to seek refuge with relatives, eventually returning to her parents' home. These developments underscored the consequences of their actions and the importance of integrity, both personally and professionally. Concerns lingered about Marilyn's penchant for spending and traveling, with her relatives worrying she might drain their savings if she stayed with them. Given her good health, it seemed prudent for her to secure a part-time job to support herself and ease their concerns. Meanwhile, I moved out of my in-laws' house and now live independently nearby. I've maintained a friendship with Henry and occasionally seek his advice on work-related matters. This marks the beginning of a new chapter in my life, a shift from managing household duties and raising children to embracing professional opportunities. During my job search, I was contacted by the owner of a company who had heard about my recent challenges. Concerned for my well-being, he offered me a position at his firm, eager to help me find stability. I accepted the offer with gratitude, touched by his kindness. In our conversations, he insisted that his company was the one fortunate to have me, which felt like a full-circle moment, a chance to repay a past favor and now contribute positively. The company he introduced me to is well-known and highly regarded for its treatment of employees, a pleasant surprise given my previous experiences. Interestingly, this company operates in the same industry my ex-husband used to boast about, yet it's significantly larger. Everyone at my new workplace has been welcoming, making my daily experiences far more enjoyable than the times marred by marital strife. This fresh start has been invigorating, allowing me to leave the past behind and look forward to a promising future.